My name is Lynn Shakespeare from Central City, Iowa. Have you noticed all the strange events that have happening here lately? You've got more UFO activity than we've ever had. The fires, the environmental changes, viruses, politics, change in the currency, where we're switching to a digital currency and we're moving to a new currency. There's been a lot of talk of secret societies, genocide, eliminating a large percentage of the population in different ways. Well, I know something about what is happening, and it's going to take a lot of explaining. And it's not easy for me to talk about this, and I'm going to do a lot of explaining here. A lot of explaining. So this isn't going to be some fancy video with some special effects in it. I'm going to tell you things that I know from experience, and a lot of people are going to be disbelievers, and they're not going to understand, and I'm going to try my best to get through to you. Okay, and there's going to be a lot of people that once they find out what I know are going to be mad. So let me start here as best I can. And you know, I'm gonna have to go forward and backwards through time here. In fact, at the end of the video, I might go way backwards to when I was growing up to understand some of this. Okay, so let me start with this. I did a video long ago about a 9/11 pre-event. There was a 9/11 pre-event in Marion, Iowa, at the landfill, where 3 foreigners came in and 1 FBI agent, and one of the foreigners was, they called him a co-conspirator. His name was Yusuf Memza, that was working with the other 2 that were going to either fly the airplanes because they just got back from the flight school in Florida, or they were going to be somewhere else in the plane, but they were the terrorists, and an FBI agent. And the co-conspirator, Yusuf Memza, thought he was going to get this job in the end after everything was all done and over with the government. In fact, there was some leaked information out that pointed to the fact that he might have been actually a double agent, you know, working with the terrorists, but also working with the CIA. I think that was leaked under the Washington Post. Anyway, so when they were at the landfill, Yusuf Memza was trying to whistleblow that the events was going to happen. And he brought into the building that I was working in a binder with the plans for 9/11 and future events with a lot of government papers. And then items that left a trail of where they've all been. Everything that he left would have changed history. So the history that you have been told is not the real history. It was created. Okay? Now, when this happened, he told me as much as he could, as fast as he could, all these future plans. And a lot of those plans that he told me, and I didn't believe the guy, are happening today. Now, there's another video out there you can watch about the event that goes into more of it, okay? But the FBI agent was working with these terrorists, but he didn't want to be seen with the terrorists. And when the terrorists left, he came in, demanded what was thrown out, and what I was told, I will say this, I was ordered to destroy all of that evidence, or they were going to charge me with treason, make up a crime and charge me with it, or they were going to kill me, my co-workers, and anybody else we told. Not just because of 9/11, because of all the future events that you're seeing now. Okay, So I'm going to try to explain. And I don't have, I got my computer here in front of me, and I don't have all of this here. There was a time when I came home after the events had happened, and I had wrote stuff down in notebooks and put it on my computer. But during that time period of being a monitored witness for the FBI, the government, they kept on hacking my computer, or somebody else, and I kept on losing what I was typing, and stuff would just disappear. Now, there is a person, I want to bring this up right away here because at some point it's going to come up. During that 9/11, or after the 9/11 pre-event, so this would have been, the 9/11 pre-event was in May of 2000. In 2003, when the committee hearings were still going on, and I let Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, Marcel Elliott Zuckerberg, stay at my home. He's the one, that started Facebook. He started Facebook with my intellectual work, if you guys didn't know. It doesn't, or the videos you can watch because of that. But what's going on, when he was at my home, I explained to him what was going on. And I tell you what, I think he's actually joined up with this group now. But I don't like him at all. I'm very furious at him because he ripped me off. But I will say this: more than likely, they didn't give him a choice. The choice was probably join up, reap the rewards of it, or death. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this. Here we go. So this group, okay, now you're going to have a hard time with this. I know them as the consortium group. Now, the consortium group, I think, is a Latin for the many, I think. So many you can't point a finger at them all. Okay? The consortium is made up of the super rich. Now, there's the consortium, what you have heard of as the Illuminati, which is the New World Order. And then there's another one, higher up. The Brotherhood of the Snake. Okay? So, I got to explain this, and I'll get to the grand plan. So, the Brotherhood of the Snake is supposed to be made up of descendants of the Anunnaki king, Enki. Now, all of the royal lines are related. And someone, they took an accounting of all the royal bloodlines. So just being related isn't enough. You have to actually be a descendant. Okay? So the Order of the Snake, the Brotherhood, the Order of the Snake, is made up of those. But they're made up of the wealthier ones. And what they want is they want total control over everything, the world. Okay? Now, handed down through generations, they've learned some things that they call themselves the enlightened ones. Okay? And I used to think it was all just hokey-pokey bullcrap, right? Well, over the years as growing up, I learned it's not so much bullcrap. There really is something to that. Okay, so as times are changing, we're starting to learn that the Anunnaki were a race of aliens that came to the world, and basically they created us. Okay, we were their slaves, their food, their entertainment, their art. Yeah, nothing good, Kind of reminds you of Stargate. Really does. Anyway, so then you have the Illuminati, the New World Order. Now, it's really confusing because I really don't know much from there to there. That I don't know. In fact, they might just be the same. I don't know. Now, the consortium group is made up not of the Brotherhood. The consortium group is made up of the super wealthy. A lot of Nazis. Yeah, I said it. A lot of Nazis. So think of it this way. So we won World War II. We got rid of fascism. We got rid of the Nazis. But we let some of the Nazis into the United States, scientists and such, you know. But in the background, they regrouped. You got the consortium group now, okay? And a lot of them are in the group, the super wealthy. Now, they are in one political party more than the other. So a lot of them that take an oath to the Republicans, National Progressive Committee, party, they also take an oath to the consortium group, okay? Now, like any good war plan, there actually are everywhere. So they have gone to the extreme of getting into everywhere with power. They've got into your local politics. They're governors, they're mayors. They've gotten into the churches. They got into the National Rifle Association. Okay? They have people that are scientists. They have people that are into archaeology. There's a reason for that. Okay? They are absolutely everywhere. So they're taking the United States and other countries from within. And they're getting you to do the work for them by becoming supporters and allies. Now, they create these alliances and groups and clubs, and you'll see them like the Three Percenters, or and there's alliances. Okay, Three Percenters is just an example, or the Proud Boys. Okay? But if you notice, if you watch commercials, a Republican commercial, and then it'll say the Alliance or the PAC and blah, 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 and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Well, they have enough money, and they pretty much control everything. So they control the media, they control the internet, and if they couldn't control any part of it, then they sought it out to get it, like Facebook. And Facebook has become quite a tool for them for propaganda to brainwash and get more followers. All right, we've gone through all of that, so let's get to this grand plan. So, I'm going to look at this a little bit here. So, they wanted to rule the world like kings. Now, there's a problem with all this. If you think back of World War II and you think of the Nazis, okay? The Nazis wanted power, right? So now you got the Brotherhood of the Snake, the Illuminati, the New World Order, which I think are together, and you have the consortium group, okay? So the Brotherhood of the Snake, the descendants from Enki, they will always be at the top. Okay, so where do the other ones fit in? The other ones, like in the consortium group, feel that they're going to be at the top, but not at the top. They're going to be at the top in their country or their state. Okay, but they want to change the government by deflating it, removing all of its funding by killing it from the inside. So they create the problem, and then they create a solution to replace it. Okay? But things have changed. You notice all this UFO stuff that's going on? Well, they're waiting for something. They're expecting something to happen very, very soon. And those groups, the Brotherhood of the Snake already knows from generations what's been handed down where they're at in this. But the consortium group and the shadow part of the government of the United States have learned enough about UFOs now that they can knock them down out of the sky, paralyze the occupants, and steal the craft. So there is a unforeseen battle going on. The groups want total control. Those aliens that are starting to wait for something to happen, they're like the vultures, okay? They're the vultures. They're going around and waiting for all this to happen. And when the shit hits the fan, this is prime real estate. And they don't like the way we've been taking care of this planet, and they want it. They want to rule again. But if they rule again, the Brotherhood of the Snake won't be ruling it, and neither will the consortium group. Okay, so I told you they want to own everything, they want to control everything. They believe they are above the law and can't be controlled or punished. When it comes to the 9/11 pre-event, I learned, the wind's blowing. When it comes to the 9/11 pre-event, I learned this very fast. They can set me up for a crime, any crime they wanted to. They can kill any of us off. They can do anything they want because they control it all. Now, the 9/11 attacks that have happened, they control it all. But they control everything that happens afterwards too. So they're never going to get in any trouble. Now we have fires in Maui. Are they involved with that? Well, I'll tell you what. It very much follows the grand plan of what they want. Okay? Now, as of 2000, I was aware that they wanted to move people from rural areas into city areas, urban areas, and they wanted to create what they called hives. Okay? Hive cities. Okay? So we're talking about moving people in, small apartments, tall buildings, in a smaller area. Okay? What about all that farm ground? They want it. They want control of it, and they want control over all the food. Okay? Have you got that? But now things have changed. They got their sights set on it differently. Now they want to create smart cities. Okay? Smart cities are, nobody has paper money. It's a chip right back here, or you have it on your phone and use facial recognition software. And for every place that you go in, there's going to be a scanner. You hold your phone up. When you walk out, hold your arm up. But as you go to walk in, there's scanners. There'll be scanners in fountains. There'll be scanners above doors. There'll be scanners in parking lots on the lights. And they know who you are when you get there. Now, if you're poor, eventually you're not going to be allowed in some buildings. If you're poor, they'll know it, and you want to go to the hospital, you're not going to get the care that everybody else, that has money is going to get. It's going to be not as good. Okay? This is coming. This is the far ahead part that I thought never would eventually be here, but until a long time, but it's here. Okay. I'm going to read some of this here. So how does the grand plan? Let's see. Okay. They're taking moves to make a one power, one religion society where the bloodline rules. That's the Order of the Snake. The problem with that is eventually the wealthy in the bloodline will fight for control. I already said that. Until then, they push the grand plan and they reap the rewards. Now, if you noticed, politicians, Republican Party mostly, have been pushing things, and it seems like you're really getting something great from it, but you're really not. It's hidden what they're doing. Okay, so let's talk about one here that really tugs at people's hearts. The abortion ban. The abortion ban was actually something in the grand plan. Now, you're thinking, oh, you know, love, babies, right? I understand that, okay. But they're all for making money, and they want the super race. They don't like minorities, they don't like minorities. So, by having an abortion ban, you have more babies, right? So, the plan is to blend out, by more babies being born, the minorities. Think about that for a moment, okay? But it's a win-win no matter how it plays out for them. If you had a baby, folks, if you have a baby, somebody's got to pay for the health care. What do you need? You need diapers. Somebody's got to manufacture that. You need food. Somebody has to manufacture that. You need health care. Somebody's got to manufacture that. You need drugs. Somebody's got to manufacture that. You're going to need clothing. You're going to need schools. Right? And then as the kids grow up, toys, right? More clothes, more health care. It's money, 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 money. And as you get bigger, you're going to need more room. You're going to need a bigger house. You're going to need a bigger space. They graduate, they go to school, they're going to need a car, they're going to need a job, they're going to need their own place, they're going to have their own family, and then we just keep multiplying like mice. Right? Money, money, money. But wait a minute now. They want to cut the population down. You're right. They do. Planned genocide. So they had to figure out a way to increase the population to blend out minorities, but then they had to figure out a way to get the population back down. So they had a plan to the ways that they had to do this. They planned on introducing a virus or viruses to activate predisposed genetic markers that would get you sick, like cancer. Now, was COVID that? Well, I tell you, when I first heard of COVID coming out, I was expecting it. I really was. And I don't know if it is or not, but it's working that exact way. And then you get you need the the drug to counteract it. The inoculation every year, and it's all working in a way to get rid of the weak. The weaker people with the weaker immune systems are the ones that die first. The people with predisposed illnesses are dying, and that's what's happening. And the ones that are stronger are the ones surviving. Now, it's interesting if the ones with the genes from handed down from the descendants of the Anunnaki, the King Enki, if they are actually being affected. Now, if you notice something else, your senses. I can't smell very well. I can't taste very well. I can't remember very well. Right? You're getting dulled. The senses are getting dulled. Okay? Well, is that just a side effect of the seasonal inoculation for COVID? Or was there a reasoning for that? Those descendants from the Anunnaki, they call themselves the enlightened ones. Okay? They learned that the enlightened ones had an ability stronger than other people. But they were trying to keep track of those genetic descendants. Now, when you go to a church, the power of praying, right? You get a bunch of people together. The power, you can feel it, right? The energy, the power of praying, right? Well, something to that. The ones that have that genetic descendant, for some reason, their brains I don't know if we have a way of proving it. But the belief is that their brains have an ability to affect others. And I used to think this was hocus pocus BS, but after years of learning what I have learned and seeing what I have seen, there's something to it. So they need to get rid of those people out of the population, or they need to dull the senses of those people and get rid of that ability. And that may sound crazy to you, and I'm sure it probably does. But years down the line, you're going to find out what I'm telling you is true. Okay. Oh, they program you by what you see and hear. Yes, I already said that. You think you're getting something you need, desire, have a right to, and you go in that direction and you defend it. The gun right. I learned of the Second Amendment gun right propaganda push, and I'm a gun owner too. Family of hunters, we did security, I'm all for it too. But they give you something. They tell you you have the right to something. You got to hang on to it. And you don't give it up. That's your right. Right? So, what's happening? Sell more guns. The people that are making the guns, making more money than they ever had. They can't even keep enough bullets on a shelf. But what happens if you have too much of one thing? Well, what happens if you eat too much candy? What happens if you eat, if you got too much of anything? What happens? Bad things happen, right? Too many guns. They're expecting people to get distrustworthy of themselves, because, man, I got that right. I got that right. I don't think that's right. And people think, oh, I'm accusing you of this and I'm accusing you of that. And they're all going at each other. What happens? More guns, more bullets, more lives taken. And they knew exactly where those lives were going to be taken from. They know who was going to buy them guns first. And they knew which lives were going to be taken, and they played it. They did research ahead of time, and they played it, and you took the bait, and it took the lives. I don't like it either. But what's going to happen? Now, this is something that's going to, this plan with the guns is going to keep playing out. Because the shit's going to hit the fan here pretty soon. And those guns are going to come into play again. Okay? But at the same time, they knew who was going to buy them guns. They knew that their supporters were going to be buying them guns. So you're putting a gun in the future defendant of the grand plan. But you just didn't know it. Most people get mad and they're so defensive they don't even want to realize what's happening. But you do need to realize what's happening. You can still be in a Republican Party. You can still be, have all these beliefs, whatever you want to believe, and you can still have your guns, and you can still be a Second Amendment rights activist. But think first. Don't let somebody else do the thinking for you and use you. You want to be used? No. Okay. Let's get more to this. Okay. The two-way gun movement is just that, and I know how defensive everyone gets. I'm an owner too. Yeah, we talked about that. They did a study and showed it would help get rid of minorities and cut down the population in a certain area. At the same time, racking up huge profits, and you're doing the work for them. It also helps gather support for the grand plan, not knowing you were doing it. Yes, we just mentioned that. Okay. The abortion plan. We just talked about that. Let's see. Okay, now, the younger generation Now, if you notice, the World War II veterans are almost gone. Now, just as the World War II veterans are almost gone, now this is interesting because there was a lot of World War II veterans when I was in school that was teachers. So now that they're almost all gone, they're changing the curriculum in schools. They've replaced it where we used to watch black and white movies of the atrocities of World War II, and we were taught the way those World War II veterans would have seen it. They're replacing it with Hitler is one of the greatest men you have ever met, or was never told. They're making him sound like a saint. They're telling people that concentration camps were fake and it was propaganda and it never happened. They got this whole new curriculum that you're teaching. So the kids don't know any different, and the World War II vets are disappearing, so they can't defend it. And the few World War II vets that are left, and you see them on the internet, and the guys are just crying. They said, we beat them, we beat them, we beat the Nazis. Don't do this to us. We lost our friends and our comrades and our families. We did it for you, and what are you doing? You're letting them in. And it's true, that's exactly what's happening. So the new generation that they're bringing in is replacing the old, and when they do, they're getting rid of books, they're getting rid of the history, and they're replacing it with the new. Is that okay with you? If it wasn't for those World War II veterans that fought for fascism, we wouldn't have the rights that we have today, and the future is planning on taking it away from us. Where's your honor and respect? Okay. As they get rid of the older population, a younger replacement will be taught new history and beliefs. You can see that now as the World War II vets are almost gone, and some schools are now teaching fascism is good, and so was Hitler. They also teach that concentration camps were faked. This is also being preached in some churches, along with Aryan beliefs. There's also big money to be made by birthing babies, where I talked about that. They need diapers, health care as they grow up. Yeah, we talked about it drives up proper. Oh yeah, and there's the other thing. They're driving up that deal with the getting rid of the abortions and more people. And more people are going to need land. There's going to be more people. So it's driving up the property taxes. I mean, they're increasing faster now than they ever have. You notice that? But it's the super wealthy that are mostly into the property and investing in it. So they're the ones making the most profit from it. That makes sense? Okay. It creates a more profitable situation. Okay, I will talk about that. They hope to eventually create a society like China with a massive, pay little workforce living in coffin apartments. A thrown away, easily replaced population. Do you really want that for yourself? You really want to live like that? Cramped in a little itty bitty space, and only the people that have more money can actually be in nature and have the cornfields and the space and have a place for your dog to roam. Do you really want that? You really want to live in a little itty-bitty coffin-style apartment? And be told what to do and be cramped? And I don't think so. Okay. Now, I want to get to religion. Religion was used by the alien races for control and to teach to be a better devoted follower. It's a religious right for the bloodline. Now, somewhere in this, I'm going to mention it now, when I got involved with the 9/11 thing. Now, that is not the pre-event. That was not the first time I've heard of the consortium group. I heard of the consortium group right after I got out of high school, when I had some trouble with somebody in the consortium group. And I heard the line once before then. You need to know your place. Why would somebody say that to me? So, the Bible, from what I understand, is only that you are reading is one volume out of many. Now, the church has got all this control, and the church knows what's really going on. But do they really want to give up that control? No. Now, here's another thing. So, the Order of the Snake, the Brotherhood, the Order of the Snake, which knows all of this, right along with the Church, Catholic Church, okay, they're noticing what's happening. They're swirling around like vultures. They're waiting for that. They're waiting for the prime real estate, the aliens, right? So, they portrayed themselves once as gods. Okay? Now, this is interesting because I was told this by that at the 9/11 pre-event. I told the guy he was full of bullshit. Okay? So now, the consortium group, along with the Brotherhood of the Snake, plans on using technology, either technology that we created or most likely that they ripped off from these alien races, to make it look like there's a second coming of Christ. And they're going to tell you what to do and how to react for control. It hasn't happened yet. Just wait for it. That's in their plan. Okay? All right. Now, just like laws are for you, laws aren't for the Brotherhood of the Snake and the super wealthy. Religion is the same way. Religion is for you. Religion is for you. You're the followers, and you're like the peasants of the consortium group and the Order of the Snake. Now, they believe that they are the descendants of the Anunnaki or of the Aryan race, and they are above the religion because they feel like they are part of that religion. A lot of people don't understand this, and you need to get a clue and understand their thinking in this. Okay? The movement to reveal aliens and everything related is a huge part of the plan. They know what they are. They know how to hunt them. They have stolen technology. There was a treaty. Did you hear that? And both sides broke it. Earth is prime real estate. They want it back. The consortium group has a plan to make it look like the aliens. The consortium group and the Order of the Snake have a plan to make it look like the aliens reveal themselves and connect it to religion. Well, I'm losing my spot here. Chuck is also the reason. Okay, now, there was a big one. Okay, there is a big one. And this is one of those that I was told, and I really didn't believe it at all. And what do you know? It really is true. Here it is. So, in that 9/11 pre-event, they're towards the end of talking to this Yusuf Memza. He said to me, I said to him first, do you really believe that you're going to be, lift up this higher plane of existence if you do this stuff, And he says, well, do you believe in God? And I said, you know what? I'm open to all religions. And I said, you can think of me as a Christian, but I'm not very religious. Okay? He says, well, what would it take you to believe in God? I said, I believe what I see, I can hear, and I can touch. And he says, well, what if they were able to do that? If a God showed up and you could see him, or you could hear him at the same time, hear him and see him at the same time, or touching, you had this grand experience, would you be a believer? I said, yeah, maybe, sure. Okay, well, that's where the part of religion, I said, well, my dad was a believer in the ancient alien theory, and I was talking about his friend that he grew up with. They studied ancient religion in Peru that became world famous as being one of the only few people to reach perfect faith. His name was Art Kalaska, and then he changed his name for his religion to was Art Jones, and he changed to Art Kalaska. Okay. Well, anyway, so they were saying to me at that pre-event that they plan on going to Iraq and starting a war with Iraq, and they were going there to hunt for antiquities because there's a piece missing to this alien something or another technology, and they need to find where it's at. So either they're going to find in the antiquities something that's going to direct them where it's at, the Zagonaut or something like that. They think that might have been where it was at. And what you got to listen to this. So if they can find this piece, they're going to control time. Now, if you've ever noticed, people talk about alien abductions. They're yanked out of time and they're put back. But when they're done, when that's done, you'll find that clocks are off or batteries are zapped. Okay? So this piece of technology that they were looking for is going to aid them into the grand plan. Just possibly they want to bring back the time of Hitler, and they're going to change it into that he wins. Can you imagine what the world would be like if Hitler controlled everything? The Nazis? Can you imagine what the world would be like? Okay. Oh, let's see. I just said that. UFO tech is one of the reasons for going to Iraq. Did you notice all the antiquities and the massive groups trying to read all of the clay tablets? In fact, I was contacted. There was these little courses that you could take because they were trying to get as many people as they could to read all these clay tablets. And they felt that whoever had whichever groups of people read the tablets and deciphered them, came up with the same decipher, was going to be right. Because there were so many of them, they were trying to get as many people as they could to decipher those tablets. Okay, to help them find what they were looking for. All right, the consortium group. Oh, my computer here. Consortium group been creating diseases for years and profiting off them in multiple ways. The new equipment, the CRISPR gene editing machine, made it easier to develop and target. They learned they could create genetic bioweapons. They originally planned to implement it using migrating birds and bugs. They created a virus and the cure. It's a perfect way to get it into the population. The COVID came out. I knew something was coming. Was it COVID? I don't know. It is doing what they wanted, targeting the weak and those with predispositions for illnesses, activating it to get rid of them, to further get down the population or remove predisposed health problems like cancer and more. They tried to get doctors and gifted college students in genetics to help them build the bioweapons. Listen to this very closely. Many doctors refused, and after learning the plan, they were murdered. I was talking about Mark, if he eventually joined up with these people. They give you a choice. They either want you in, they want you in, you're in. So you know about them then, right? So if you don't join up, then that's it. Many doctors refused. After learning the plan, they were murdered. Most were set up to look like they committed suicide. It should also be known that they have ideas of creating a virus that would affect farm animals, used for processing. How would that work for them? They would have the healthy animals and eventually offer a cure for a hefty price. Just like COVID. So you would constantly have to get an inoculation for your animals, and if you couldn't pay the hefty price, then your cattle is going to die out on the field, or your horses, your goats, your chickens, your geese, your turkeys, your rabbits, your sheep, your pigs. So one way or another, they get total control. As of 2000, I know they wanted to try and get the population away from rural areas and building houses. They wanted more large apartment buildings. They then create hive cities, bringing more people to a smaller area. As technology progressed, they want green cities. The most would live in small coffin-style apartments. Maui, Hawaii was sought after as a site by the UN for a smart digital city. Now, there are many locations picked out for the smart cities. One of them is in California that I know of, but the other ones are really being fight about. But you can pretty much figure for wherever there is a massive population, they plan on putting a smart city. And if you don't go along with the chip, or on the phone, you are not going to be able to do business. In fact, if you don't go along with it and you got money stashed away someplace, you may not be able to take that money that you have, the good old American greenback dollar, and exchange it for the new currency. You may just lose everything. It may happen. You just might lose it. Now, by doing what they're doing, they're going to have control over everything. So they're going to know everything aspect about your life. You can't hide money from the government no more because you can only save it digitally. Okay. Now, they have a plan to eliminate poverty. And you're not going to like this. Their plan to eliminate poverty is by using genocide. Have you been noticing the stuff that they've been dropping from the sky? Up here, they've been doing it in a grid pattern. An actual grid pattern, like a checkerboard. It's literally going this way, and then it's going this way. An absolute grid pattern, and you can see whatever it is falling. They plan on using genocide to eliminate poverty, and they are going to use every way that they can through viruses, environmental disasters. Environmental disasters that are going to occur naturally, they can take advantage of, or they're going to create the environmental disasters, all to get the population down where they want to get it down and eliminate poverty. And if you're in one of these places that they want to put a smart city and it's prime real estate for what they want, they're going to get rid of you. They're either going to get rid of you, through one of those means, or they're going to get rid of you with the civil missile defense system, the direct energy weapon that somebody apparently is starting to use offensively. And I'm really surprised that they're getting away with that, because if they're doing that, I would think that'd be the beginning of a war. Okay? Let's see. The planned genocide has also improved low economic areas. If you are poor, you have health problems, live in a low-income community or a generational home or farm, white farmers. Now, the health care, if you notice, if you're getting the health care, like Medicaid, and they want that, they've been targeting low-income areas, they've been targeting farmers. Here in Iowa, they had the Iowa Care, and a lot of farmers, when it first came out, it was targeting a lot of farmers because farmers were under the impression, and they were told, that your kid can get health care that you couldn't afford. You don't have to worry about losing a farm anymore. You can get that care. Well, then after it was out for like 3 years or something like that, then they retroactively changed it. Retroactively. So, retroactively, you now have a big bill against your estate that somebody's got to pay eventually, or you're going to lose the family farm, or your generational farm, your generational home. It was a way to get you out of it. They couldn't get you out any other way, but that way they could. And on the internet, there was files leaked that showed what they had planned, because it showed the entire plan. Somebody leaked it by accident that didn't like what was going to happen. Okay. Forced sterilizations, chemical delivered multiple ways, force of hand by legal means, any event created or natural that plausible deniability fits as a cover if they schedule it sooner, concentrated radio waves. Oh, that was a bad one. It made you all dizzy. When I became the 9/11 pre-event witness, we had an issue out here where something kept on coming down, and it was killing off the trees. But you could see it. It was like targeted, just right within my property. And then we learned to get under tin buildings, get under a tin roof, put a tin roof on the house. It helps you stay away from those radio waves. And you know what? It works. It works. Really, it's it. We felt better. We weren't dizzy no more. Okay. And use of the DEW weapon. It stands for direct energy weapon. First revealed in President Reagan's plan for civil defense missile system. Since Trump has taken office for the first time, many countries claim to have proof has been used offensively, and California may have been the first victim. They are making it so they are above the law and are the law. Let's see. The consortium plan is to infiltrate every possible power position and get more control and grow in the government and its military, its agencies, local law enforcement service, and medical, schools, churches, food production, media, and much more. I've already said that. Okay, I lost something here. Taxes are for everyone else, not them. Have you figured this one out yet? So we got the Republicans saying, oh, tax breaks, tax breaks, tax breaks. You vote for me and I'll get rid of your taxes. You know what? We need to drain the swamp, right? You know, I don't like that money going there, and I don't think our money should go there, and I don't think it should be going to schools, and I don't think it should be going for somebody else's roads, and I don't think somebody else's health care, and blah, 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 right? Okay. But all those taxes go into the government, and those taxes, that money, is the blood of the government. It keeps it going. Keeps the government machine oiled and running. It's the fuel in it. It keeps it going. Now, if the super rich claim, well, I don't want to pay Social Security because I'll probably never get it. Okay? So if the Social Security isn't paid by the super wealthy, then Social Security will end by 2033. Now, Social Security was also robbed. Did you remember that? During the Iraq War, Bush pulled money out of Social Security for the war. So what they're doing is they're telling you you're going to get something. And you're fighting for that right again, like that, the 2A right. But what you're doing is you're supporting the consortium group, because the consortium group wants to stab at the government and deflate it and drain that swamp. And once they drain it, like, if you ever notice when they get in office, Trump got in office, don't get mad at me over this, but when Trump got in office, he spent trillions of dollars. He had trillions of dollars of deficit. So what they want to do is they want to keep taking out and not put back in. And they're telling you that's good, but what they're doing is they're going to get rid of the government eventually because it's going to get broke. And then they're going to point, oh, we got a solution. We got a new government. And then you'll no longer have your Bill of Rights, and you'll no longer have your rights. And everything will change. So that means everything will change. The way land ownership is, the way the schools are run, the way the laws are. There won't be no laws. There won't be no constitution. There won't be no amendments. There won't be courts like you have now. You really want to live like that? I don't think you do. But now some people say, oh, but I could use that extra money. I may be super rich, but you want to keep that money, right? But what about generations to come? Well, what about generations down the road? Your kid has a kid, his kid has a kid, his kid has a kid. That generation. Don't you want to keep the government around for that? So you hear them today in political speeches. They plan on eliminating and lowering taxes, but whose? The wealthy are only paying 1% of their income or less. Our governor in Iowa just lowered taxes for the wealthy and limited capital gains taxes. They feel they shouldn't have to pay into Social Security. They complain about people that get it, or any other people that get help from sources like Medicaid. Now, the government also helps people plant fields. Farmers, and some of those farmers aren't so wealthy. But some of those farmers are, and they're the ones preaching, oh, we don't want to pay them taxes. But as long as they get the money, it's okay. Okay, what are they describing as draining the tax funding to run the government? Destroying it from within. They are also doing that by creating a larger deficit, and every time one gets in office. Trump just added the $3 trillion to the deficit. Why are they doing this? They're draining the life of the U.S. government, leading to eventually replacing it when it's broken with no money to support it. They want to replace it with a fascist, totalitarian government, similar to what Hitler had. If they do succeed, the top percent will reap everything, while the rest lives miserably trying to please them while struggling to survive. But what we see today is so many helping them move towards that goal. Do they really know what they're doing? Do you really know what you're doing? Most of them don't. They just blindly, self-righteously. Okay. Around 2000, some scientists came up with a report that the weather will get extreme and humanity will struggle to survive. It will kill off plant life, food, and oxygen, and then the animals. But there is another problem, and it also takes bugs to grow food like bees, to pollinate. The bees are dying from pesticides, and a hornet is migrating, killing the bees. They keep the report to themselves, for the public wouldn't know, for they could prepare, not you. They created massive machines that can melt rock as it bores in the ground, creating large living areas. The idea came from surviving the ice age underground. Did you notice fresh water is disappearing? Where is it if it's not in the sky? Imagine if someone could control all the fresh water and the rights to it. So they're using these massive machines to bore through rock. First it was to create domes so far down in that if there was a nuclear war, the radiation shouldn't reach them. The radiation should go upward, it would go downward, but it wouldn't go down enough to get to them. Okay? And then they have lights, big enough areas, they created fields, everything's run off electricity underground with new technology that they have, but we don't have up here because we got to pay for the electricity to make them money. Okay? So what if this happens? And it is happening. They're doing this. You can look at dumbs on the internet to get an idea of what they're doing. If they control the water, you're going to need water for survival somehow. Right? Now, they figured out ways to control the weather. There's some whistleblowers talking about all the ways that they've learned to control the weather, and they plan on using those natural disasters to put more of a struggle on you. Okay. They have plans to take your land. They want to have it all and control it. They'll up your taxes until it's unaffordable, weeding areas, moving people out with the same beliefs until much later. And the plan when they too will feel the effect of total control. They also have other means to accomplish this by using biowarfare from the sky. Talk about that, radio waves and radiation. And the new ultimate dew weapon, just a millisecond, and it's so hot it'll melt through steel and concrete, creating fires. Did I leave out anything out of the plan? Yes. A question you should ask is, do they or some have a connection to alien genetics? The answer is yes. Do they have some special abilities? Yes. The answer is yes. They are thoughts that can have an effect on others. Yes, as I was taught. That's interesting. So when I was young, There's a lot of explaining there. A lot of explaining. So when I was young, you know what, I really don't want anybody to know about this. So my grandparents had a lot of knowledge about UFOs. My grandfather was in World War II, he was a sergeant. There was he was on a transport ship taking his troops, and there was a UFO that hovered over a ship. He was telling me about it and hovered really low, so they could see it very, very closely. And he had a very big interest in UFOs ever since that. Well, getting out of the service, one of the people that he was in the service with, and this person, which may have been a president, or there may have been two. Anyway, he had access to the area where they do research on UFOs. And he would come to the house. And I was there the one day he was there, and the car pulled in, had flags on each corner of it. So, I'm thinking like a president, it might have been, don't know. He had a lot, my grandfather had a lot of letters hung up from presidents. Anyway, he was there talking about UFOs and alien research, and I was probably about 2 years old. I was sitting on my grandfather's lap, and I got to see this gray sheet that it looked like kind of like material or something, and he took it out, and he origamied it into something. This is something this guy liked to do, and he put it on the table, and then it moved, and then it went back to a flat state. And they were writing things on paper and drawing different things, and I got to see all this, and I wanted to reach and touch that, and I was told I couldn't. And that piece, whatever it was, you couldn't tear it, rip it, cut it, or anything, so I don't know how it got into a square. Anyway, when he was there, he handed out, he handed out coins, commemorative coins for 1972 for the moon landing. And he handed out militaries, like, presidential and military pins and stuff when he visited. And my grandparents had a lot of knowledge about programs going on. And there was several areas where the UFOs landed where they lived at. They lived next to Palo, Iowa. And one of those landing sites was just right across the road at a pony farm that my grandfather ran, which later became a wildlife reserve. Now, the information, the knowledge that they had was very well hidden. Very few knew about it. I stayed there at night many times. I stayed there during the day many times, and then at night when my parents were working. And when I was just a little kid, I was told how to react if I spent the night and they arrived. And I asked my mom, now, that I'm growing up, about that. I said, tell me about that. She said, and I said, it's just a way to control us kids. And she said, no, it wasn't just to control your kids, it was to make sure that you were safe. Did you hear that? When I came into this world, my dad studied and played around with a little bit of occult stuff, I guess you kind of say it. And he did the astral travel, and he did a lot of stuff with his friend, Art Jones. And at one point, when he got back from Peru, when he was studying ancient religion, he said to my dad, he says, there's something in this world that you can't see. And he tried to show my dad, and something grabbed a hold of him. And almost like it grabbed the force grabbed a hold of him, took him across the room, put him up against a wall, lifted him up, and then everything in the room just started, big objects started going towards him. And then eventually let him loose. Now, what is that? What is it that you're not seeing? Okay. Now, I learned some stuff. My grandfather passed away very young. I was only 8 years old. In fact, shortly after one of these people visited from the government, visited my grandfather, the medication that he got from the pharmacy was not the right medication, and it killed him. How often do you ever hear of that? So when I was born, this may sound really fictitious to people, but there was this light They kept on coming into my room. There was only one window. And they covered it up, and this light, bright light, kept on shining on me. And they couldn't get rid of the light. And then there was these balls about this big around. Now, not like a bubble, like people, see that it's like, light shining off the lens on a camera. These balls are about the size of a softball. And when they first showed up, they showed up next to my head when I was sleeping in my bed. Okay, and then there was more of them. So it was usually just one, and then like an unseen force was like, they tried to shoo it away. And then there was an unseen force protecting me, keeping them from me. And in 1972, this is when things really, Mom said everything really, I did a video of her talking about that. What happened was there would be an intense, bright, light blue light fill my room, and then whoosh, and then they would find me, usually in the living room. Something came in my room and took me out of time, and apparently brought me back. Now the question is, do I remember anything? Well, actually, I remember something. I remember something that looked like people from the Hindu religion, and I remember pointing at a Christmas tree. It had this ornament that looked like a teardrop, and said, "That's what I travel in." And I described items, technology that didn't exist. I said names of people that aren't like names that you would expect, that don't exist. As a little kid. So I picked this up from something. Well, the parents got a divorce, and I moved up to Central City, Iowa. This is where my dad originally had grown up as a kid. And those events continued. And there was an unseen force that grabbed a hold of me and forced me to kneel. And then on one night, there was, I woke up to somebody yelling, and there was this, looked like I call him the light bulb guy, this glowing guy, running. And as I looked out, from the end of my bed, we live in a small 1800s frontier-style home, so that you sleep basically under the roof peak, And it was gone, and the sky, or the image of the sky was glowing, was running, and then there was two other ones running after him. And so the wall was gone, and he kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he went through the middle of the room, because there's a hallway going from one to the other, how the rooms are connected. And he went through the other room, that sun, with my stepdad seeing it too, and he went through that wall and then came back around, and he could hear the guy screaming for help. Well, he went and got crosses and put up in the house, and that didn't solve the problem. And the events just kept on continuing and continuing. So eventually I started sleeping with the light on. I was a little kid and I was scared. And then I had events where it seemed like I was in I was asleep and it should have been a dream, but I was gone. It seemed like I was gone for like a week at a time. And I was being taught different things by teachers. And one of them looked like somebody in a desert. And he was teaching me how to use my mind, and you sense this and you sense that. And like good and evil, And then, I woke up and geez, I felt like I was gone for a week. I was so glad to be home. But, it was just overnight. And that continued over and over and over and over and over. Then at one point, at different points in life, it looked like something, and I didn't know what they were, but it's a holy seal. And these things would go, you go, choo, doo, 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 and then it would go, one would flip, and then it would go, and then it would change color. So in other words, like the whole thing was like burnt orange color, and then a light would go around it, and it would flip. How was that? Yeah, light would go around and then it would flip and then it would change another color. And then this thing would turn. And that happened actually over probably 20 years. And so it got to the point I don't sleep much. And my grandmother had the exact same issue. She didn't sleep much. She had to be in bed by 3. She knew she had to be to bed by 3. And this is what I've learned. I got to be to bed by 3. And as long as I'm in bed by 3, something happens. This bright flash of light, I'm gone, I come back, or whatever it is that happens. And then, wow, it's like I slept 8 hours. So I've learned this. Now, my hair turned gray at the age of 21. My hair turned gray. Isn't that weird? It's going to turn gray at 21. A social life wasn't so easy when I started living with, women, because that events that would happen, well, if you're in the bed at the exact same time, they witnessed it. And it really freaked them out. So I'm single. Been single most of my life. And there was an event. This was after the 9/11 pre-event, where oh no, we gotta go back. So when I was a kid in high school, we had another Shakespeare went to school with me, and she kept on calling me a half-breed. And some of these Shakespeares believe that if you aren't a true part of that bloodline, then you're half a breed. Okay, that's that Anunnaki, Brotherhood of the Snake kind of Aryan thing. Okay, so but I didn't understand that. So I learned that my dad, they believed that my dad might have been from a rape, but they couldn't. It would have been in 1929, 1930, somewhere around there. So they didn't know, right? So that's where this belief came from. So after getting out of high school, I met this girl named Denise. So when I first met Denise, these aliens that we're talking about now, everybody's talking about, so they are so advanced and so smart that they have been setting things up for years. When I met Denise, now there might have been one side that wanted us together and one side it didn't. When I met Denise, I took her up to the Pennington Ridge Park. We got this big tower where you can go up there and look over the trees, treetops and everything. And we're sitting in the parking lot. This is on her birthday, so it's around February 16th of 1990, right? 16th to the 21st, somewhere around there. Anyway, and this guy comes up, not dressed for being February, and he comes up and knocks on a window and just starts talking to us like he had known us forever. And then he starts telling us about all the stuff that's going to happen. You got to be prepared for it. I'm telling you, and you got to make sure you stay together. This is very important. Okay? And then he says, well, maybe I just need to realize we're all just echoes and ghosts of the past. And she turns around and she looks at me and she says, did you set this up? And I said, no. We turn around, guy's gone. It happened so quick, there was no way that he could have left that quick and we not seen it. Well, interesting is, later in life, when we broke up, everything that happened during the relationship and the breakup, everything that the guy said happened. All of it. And right away after the relationship got serious and we started, sleeping together, living together, plans to get married, we're going to have kids, the whole bit. Some people, my dad's brother, for one of them, said he's forbidden it. And some other people that, I didn't know the Shakespeares very well. Now, the Shakespeares and the Windsors shared a family reunion because there's a connection to the royal family, if you didn't know this. So for some odd reason, they didn't want her bloodline somebody didn't want her genetics in that bloodline. And I was more or less told, you know what, this isn't going to happen. Well, when I met her, her parents lived in a multi-million-dollar home. And then they got in trouble, and then they moved from the multi-million-dollar home to a little one. And I don't know what all they were into. And Denise and I started having problems, and we moved apart, but still together. And then the problems just got so bad that I said, that's it, I can't do it no more. You know what? We got to break up. And she was the girlfriend of my dreams. She was a model. Oh, she's gorgeous and smart. She did graphic design for the local newspaper. I mean, she was everything that your ultimate girlfriend could be. And then I found out she was pregnant, and she said that if it was mine, I'd never see it. And then I tried to get in contact with her, to talk everything over, and everything just started going crazy. And I got accused of things I didn't do. So I don't know if this is the first time I heard of that consortium group, which works for the other group further up. And so I was set up for a crime. Okay. But anyway, so what happened is I mouthed off and said something I shouldn't have, and they came to my house searching for explosives because I said some smart-ass comment. No, I was not actually. Anyway, so they came here looking for it. They didn't find anything, and they wanted me to go down and give my own side of the story. And they offered to give me a ride, and I said sure. So they took me to a fire department where they had this pre-typed statement in a cubicle with a big halogen light shining over me, so I really couldn't read it, forcing me to sign this, and I wouldn't. And it wasn't letting me tell my side of the story. They created this whole scenario that never happened. And the FBI was there, at least that's what I was under the impression of. And then when I wouldn't sign it, they told me that the governor of Iowa, Branstad, and it was the first time I heard them mention of the consortium group, wanted to pass this new law, and we're going to make it look like you fit this scenario to make this bill go through. But it didn't work. I still got in trouble, but my record was eventually cleared. Anyway, I was set up for, they tried to get me for something more serious, like threats or something, and they had me plead guilty to harassment. Well, yeah, I was calling her on the phone, said, we got to talk, we need to talk about this, that's realistic. After the deal with Denise, I don't know if I told it or not, but there was these two people that came to the house. I thought they were prophetizing. They kind of looked like Elvis from Lord of the Rings, but back in 1991, you didn't have that, But they looked about the same height, didn't have much coloration to their eyes, and the ears are kind of laid back and pointed, and so are their heads, Anyway, they didn't come to prophetize. They came to tell me that the events that had happened was pre-written, predestined, that had to be. Told me about this kid, but you're not going to be able to know the kid. All of this is part of a grand plan. Did you hear that? All of this is part of some grand plan. Now, Denise and I split up, and I met this other girl. Her name was Tiffany. And Tiffany and I were just friends, but Tiffany became paralyzed with spinal meningitis. And because she became paralyzed with spinal meningitis, I worked on an idea, a business plan, to make her world a better place, where she had options to bring the world to her. That business plan I started working on just before the start of the World Wide Web. That was 1993. Because she got sick after going to the Mall of America, but not just as it opened, but a short time afterward. Now, that business plan I worked on for 10 years. I left the job doing security at a place that melded on currency for the Federal Mint. Boy, this light is really getting to me. See if I can move forward. Anyway, I left that job when I thought the time was right to get it going. And then I got involved in the 9/11 pre-event. That is the intellectual work that Mark Zuckerberg stole from me. He entered into an agreement to use it, because I was trying to get it going. But with the 9/11 pre-event and the government coming down on me, it took away all my options, and I just needed to get it going, but I needed a return from it. And I still wanted it to do what it was going to do. It was going to help her, bring the world to her. It was going to help other people like her. It was going to fund free clinics and shelters and help fund a cure for neuromuscular diseases. So Mark offered me a return for using my intellectual work, but then he never paid me. Afterwards, he stole it. He stole it. Left me broke. That work became Facebook. But that Facebook has now become a major part in this grand plan. Interesting, isn't it? How it all played out? It all played out. So, there's another thing here, another serious thing, and I've been trying to find it. After the 9/11 pre-event, I have a picture that's very interesting. So after the 9/11 pre-event, my friend Dave and I, we went to Wisconsin. We came back, got my first new digital camera, and as I came back, I was trying to use it. The image kept on swirling; it wouldn't work. I'm going, take a picture, you know. But anyway, we hooked up the computer, and it did take pictures. What it took pictures of was multiple aliens in my house, and they were walking away. You could see in the photos. So eventually they were standing, facing us from the next room. The one was looked like a reptilian. Now, I put one of those photos on the internet, and I was told, boy, that sun, I was told to never, ever, ever do that again. And then when Mark was here, that was in 2003, well, I think he might have taken those too, along with something else, because the disc disappeared. But I still got one photo, and I've been showing it on the internet. But it's interesting how this is all played out. Those, you know, the pre-event, they told us about going to Iraq looking for this alien technology, and, you know, what would you have to do to believe in God? And then you got the Brotherhood of the Snake. And if the Anunnaki were reptilians, and then I take a picture, and there's reptilians. And then you got all this UFO-like activity when I was a kid. My grandparents knew all that knowledge. You realize something? It seems very unbelievable. And if it wasn't for all the experiences of my life, I wouldn't have believed it. But all of it fits together. All of it does. Now, after the 9/11 pre-event, there seemed to be something that was warning us. Like I said, there seems to be something that's on the bad side and there's something on the good side. So which one is the reptilian that was in the house? That thing we got a picture of. Was it the good one or the bad one? We don't know. But we started having these weird dreams about like an apocalypse. You know, it didn't start out apocalyptic, but eventually wound up being kind of like apocalyptic. But I seen it from my point of view. Dave's seen it from his point of view. Tim seen it from his point of view. And I asked everybody, are you having these weird dreams too? Yeah, we're having these weird dreams too. So then I started keeping track of it. Well, the government was monitoring me in every way, and my computer kept on getting affected, so it kept on getting hacked. And then I'd have to, you know, reload it. So I was losing a lot of that, but I was keeping a lot of it on disk, you know, making backups of my documents. And then I got another computer. So what we realized what was happening was something was warning us. And it was, when I seen it, and we wrote it down, Dave, Tim, it created a journal from 3 different points of view. For each one of us, it was their point of view of the events that are going to happen, but in reverse. So when we got done, when it eventually quit, it quit just before the COVID started. And that's how we kind of knew there was a virus coming. So that is, what, 19 years? 19 years of that, right? So we were noticing how the events kept on playing out, and then we would like, well, there's when it happened, there's when it happened, there's when it happened, there's when it happened. And we could also describe the land. Like, there's a building here, but there isn't there, but it's there now. The school was different. The school that I seen, it's here now. We have probably passed hundreds, maybe even thousands, guideposts, and it all came true. How is that even possible? Now, I've been trying to find as much of that as I can because I want to read it off on the internet for people to take this in, if I can find it, and I'm not having any luck. But there was a guy that comes and visits from the government, and he was in the government. He was in the service. Okay, it's just somebody I know, and we were talking about this, and he wanted to read it, so he started reading it, and then he didn't want to stop. He wanted to read through it all of those years. Well, when he got to one certain part in it, and it was deeply into it, he changed 3 different shades. His color changed 3 different shades. And then he just started to shake really bad. And he looked at me and he said, "There is no way that you could have wrote that unless you were in the service." It really affected me. So I want to find it and read it so everybody else could get that grand shock that he did. So because what has happened today, I think you can find it in that writing. I really do. Now that I'm saying that, if the government didn't steal it off my computer already, they're probably going to wind up coming to my house demanding it. So let's hope not. So, I don't know if this video is going to do anybody any good or not. So, I got the only, here's the thing. I should have said this. I think I started to in the beginning. Here's a problem. These groups, the consortium group in the United States, they did a lot to hurt me. They did a lot to hurt all of us that had this knowledge that I'm sharing with you. And it may not seem like that much, but to them, it's a lot. And they can hurt me again. And one of my friends that has some of the knowledge that I have, he said to me, I finally have a better life. I finally made something of myself. Don't ruin it. I know you feel like there's a war going on, and you got to tell people. He says, but I don't want my life ruined. You know what? They took my life from me. I'm still living. But Mark Zuckerberg stole my intellectual work. And they offered, I got a phone call, they offered to take care of that. But if they did, they were going to give the same treatment to Mark Zuckerberg and Mark Howitson that a lot of the 9/11 pre-event witnesses got, and they died. And I didn't want that on my conscience, and I kept on saying, but my life's work, I need a return from it. Don't kill him off. I'm hoping he'll do what's right. But I've never seen a dime from Mark Zuckerberg or that lawyer, Mark Howitson. I've never seen a dime, and instead they created this fake creation history and been lying to everybody, and now the consortium group, it looks like they're protecting them. So why did I do this? I did this because I care. And you know what? These health problems, I got the Sjogren's and Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy, they're really taking a toll on me. And you know what? I'm broke. So I'm here now, and I can do this. My nose is running. Okay, so I'm here now, and I can do this. If I don't stick it on the internet, hopefully somebody finds it, and it still gets known. You know, I didn't deserve what happened to me. A lot of people that, you know, that knew about what was going to happen didn't deserve, you know, their fate that they got dealt. But, you know what? I care about this world. I do. I care about it. Can you imagine what it's going to be like if they get what they want? It's not going to be good for me, you, your kids, future generations. It may take a while, but they're making progress. And the stuff that they're doing, it's the stuff that they got planned that they're doing. It's horrible. If I do this, I give you a fighting chance. Now, there's something else you should know. You need to prepare. I want you to. I want you to prepare for the natural disasters. I want you to prepare for the, you know, the shit hitting the fan situation. You know, get a backpack, put stuff in it. You know, like you need some things to survive on: medication, string, tape, dental floss, toothbrush, toilet paper, rags, plastic. Get a collapsible, or you know, fish pole, fishing yo-yos, fishing tackle, a very good shovel, a folding shovel, a hatchet with a good handle that it's not going to break, with a good head that's not going to go dull fast, sheets, shortwave radio, world radio, and two shortwave radios where you can talk to somebody. A small solar charger that you can charge batteries with. Anything that you need that which you can start a fire with, a pair of glasses or a magnesium. And you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually save up for a larger solar panel and an inverter, but you're going to have to put it in something metal lined with rubber in case there's an EM attack, which is probably going to wind up happening. So anything electronic needs to be put in there, and you need to have yourself, you know, a good multi-tool, a machete, some knives. Now everybody's thinking guns, yeah, but I'll tell you what. If the shit hits the fan, and let's say you buy a 45 or a 38, right? When you go to the store today, and you go to look for ammunition, and you say you go to ammunition for like Walmart, how often can you find that? How often can you find the shotgun shells? How often? Pretty hard to find it without going to a specialty store or a gun shop. 22 shells are hard too, but they're easier and they're smaller. Right? There's going to be people that are going to want to thieve if the shit hits the fan. There's a natural disaster. That's just the way it always is. But what you need to be more interested in is food. So little traps are also handy too. You need to be more interested in food, and you can put a lot more 22 shells in a small space than you can anything else, and they're a lot easier to find. Find people that you can trust. Find neighbors that you can trust when the world takes a shitter. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good. Oh, binoculars, that'd be a good one. Oh. And books. Some books. What kind of books? Books. Learn survival. Learn how to live off the land when you have nothing. Learn what plants are eatable when there's no meat, no animals to kill. Learn what you can do with those. Now, there's an interesting point to that when I'm bringing this up. That over those years we were writing that, I was typing that what was happening. We were like seeing the future, and buildings were built that weren't there. People have also come into my life that weren't in my life too. That was in that writing. One of those is a lady that does everything natural. She collects nuts and berries and plants, and she makes jellies and salves and medicine. And if the shit hits the fan, and if it plays out like it was written, she's going to be very important. So find some books on that. Find some books. Now, there was a point in that what we've seen that happened, that Dave's seen, and I've seen, and Tim's seen, all from different points of view. This school wasn't built yet then, but at one point I seen the school, and the people were being marched in all the town into the school, and they went all around. They did a big line up, weaving around. It was doing blocks down the many blocks down the town. And there was roll-off dumpsters, and you could hear what sounded like thunder as they were going through the gymnasium. And what was happening was the young people went one direction, and the older people went another direction, and they were killed. They had tables set up where you had to put out your jewelry on one table, your electronic items on another, and then they forced you to undress, but if you wouldn't undress, you just went through the thing, they shot you. The younger generation was forced to take the clothes off you. The clothes went in one dumpster, and you went into another. The school wasn't here yet then. I hope that is just some possibility that never happens. Dave's seen it too. And interesting enough, Dave was a bus driver in his version. Later in life, he became a bus driver in a town at a school that he didn't know, that he's seen. What are the odds? Somehow or another, it's playing out. It is. What are some other things I can tell you before this all ends? Those events where the stuff would happen at night, it still happens. It still happens. Not as much, not as, it comes in phases, Oh, there's so much to say. There is something going on, and it's going to get crazy, guys. I don't know if this video is ever going to wind up going online or not. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And I don't know how long I'm going to be around the way things are going, but you know what? Maybe this video can help you a little bit. I hope it does. I see these people putting out these videos with all these special effects about, the genocide and the Grand Order, the New World Order, and the Grand Plan and everything. And I think they just get their information from somewhere else. They just copy it and say it in a different way. But as it comes from me, you're hearing it from the person it got it from the source. That UFO activity talking about, I shared it with you. That's been a secret for my family. You know that? It's been a secret. It's been a secret all these years. What are some other things that I know? God, there's just so much. There's so much UFO stuff I've learned from my grandparents over the years. And over the years, I could tell you that I should probably be on one of those alien shows, or with that Dr. Greer, or all these other people. So there was an event one night where I woke up to this girl. I was like on a table, and she was beating on me. trying to get me up. And I woke up as she pulled me off the table. I can still remember what she looked like. And the room was so intensely brightly lit with that light blue light. And these beings, I couldn't see them very well, it pulled us apart. Well, the next morning I got up, I went to go eat breakfast, and I said, boy, I had the most vivid dream. And I'm talking about it, and the places that she had was hitting me, and then she dug her nails into me to pull me off that table, and appeared. That's when it really took notice that stuff was going on. This was around the 9/11, sometime after the 9/11 thing. And then we had times that it felt like something was just giving me a jolt. And I thought, what the hell? Is there something really there that doesn't want me to talk about the 9/11 bit? Something was jolting me. There was a time I woke up and I was paralyzed, but I was in my room, and I thought I had a stroke. And I go, oh my God, I had a stroke, and I heard his voice. And so it sounded, I thought it was a nurse, and she could speak very clearly. And she says, Lynn, your time's almost up. It's okay. It's okay. Your time's almost up. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. And she leaned down, and I'm struggling. I thought I was going to die. And I heard another voice, and the other voice said, should I give it to him again? And she says, no, don't give it to him again, or he might die. Or I won't make it, or something like that. Anyway, I seen part of this lady's face, but it wasn't like us. It looked like something out of a Hindu religion, but the eyes were starburst and big. And I got to see that thing that they tried to get me with. In fact, I drew it up. I seen it pretty darn clearly. And then I woke up later, but I remembered it. Well, then I started catching on to what was happening. I was noticing how the batteries would go dead, the talks would be all off. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try something. So I went out and I bought clocks. I bought every clock I could find. Every garage sale I went to, there was a clock. I bought the clock. It was a freebie clock. I picked it up, and people offered it to me. I got a clock. I asked for clocks. I put clocks everywhere. So I put clocks like every foot or 2 foot apart in lines going into rooms. Because I was noticing how the time seemed to get upset. Learn something from that. When those things would come and visit, they could upset time and change it. So I didn't just, at that point, didn't just think it was a lucid dream, you see. I had physical proof. That makes sense? There was another night that I went to bed, and it always happened between 3 and 4 in the morning. Even my neighbors, my own classmates, will tell you, geez, Lynn, do you ever sleep? I woke up to this intense, bright blue light. But then it got to a point it looked like white, And I thought, geez, I just went to bed. It must be 1:30 in the afternoon. But then I thought, no, wait a minute now. Light don't shine in my room because I got solid curtains. I put solid curtains up for when I did security work, when I used to do it, because I have to work such crazy hours. Sometimes I'd have to sleep during the day. So the light started disappearing, like this. So I went to the window to look out, and as I looked out, there was a craft that was see-through like a ghost, that apparently had circumferenced, engulfed my home. And as the light was disappearing, the ship was literally leaving my home. And then I went through the trees. And Diane, if you're listening, that ship went over to your house. Which is very interesting because that guy that was running through, I told you about earlier, looked like the light bulb people, I call him. He sounded like my neighbor, which I didn't know at that time he had ever had any kind of event like an alien abduction. But later in life, I showed him a picture of the aliens I took. I took them in 2000, I took them in 2013. One in 2013 I took up within 3 feet of it, so it was pretty darn crystal clear. And he was telling me about that. Well, it went over to their house after I left mine. I watched it. I watched it go over there. Oh, hey, so you like hearing about ghost stories? Stuff like that? So there's a couple things I've learned over the years. Like I said, a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you is from experiences. My grandmother on my dad's side, she died. And she's in a morgue. And we're getting ready to do an autopsy on her. She woke up. Hey, stop it. She woke up, got off the autopsy table, and walked out. Lived a couple more years. Isn't that funny? Anyway, I've learned from my grandparents and from my dad that you can live beyond your body. In fact, you can die, and you actually can possess somebody. Now, those aliens have that ability. The ones that are part of that descended line also have this ability that you can control other people. I kind of tried to mention that, but I think I left that out. But they can control other people by thought. But there's an alien race that can actually jump into you like a possession and live inside you, controlling you. Okay? But as a person, you can die and you can possess somebody, but you can die and possess any living animal. So here's an interesting thing. So my grandfather, he got the wrong prescription and he died, right? So there was a dog that got hit on the road about 3-4 miles up the road. It had been laying there a few days. And the dog showed up at my grandmother's front door. Woof, 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 woof. He wants in. Grandma lets him in. He gets up on the chair that Grandpa always sits on. Woof, 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 woof. Grandma says to him, Oscar, you didn't really possess the dog, did you? Woof. Oscar, is that you? Did you come back? Woof. She says, so now what are you going to do? Dog goes into the bedroom, sleeps on his side of the bed. Slept there for days. Really happened. Life after death. It's amazing how families can keep secrets over the years, and churches too. Because, sometimes it goes against their religious views. Let's see, south of Central City. I'm going to tell you where it was at. The south of Central City, just down to Highway 13. There was one of the greatest secrets of mankind. And I tell you, after I seen it, I wanted to go back with a video camera and try my best to document it. In fact, I was somebody willing to pay big bucks for that at the time. So, here's what happened. A family died. There was a problem with the furnace. They all died of carbon monoxide poisoning. But for some odd reason, the 2 kids came back in a ghostly form. Now, they weren't just in a ghostly form. The kids came back in a ghostly form, fully aware of who they are, and hold a conversation can learn and can remember. And those two lived in that house. This was a secret. Those two lived in that house for about 30, well, lived, but they occupied that house for about 30 years. So the family kept the secret as long as they could. So how did I learn of the secret? Here's how I learned of the secret. So they decided to doze the house, and a younger generation built a newer house and was going to live in it, with the hope that if they destroyed the house, the two undead living kids, dead but living kids, would leave. I really don't know if that would work. Okay. So they decided to have a garage sale. But everything on the house was for sale. You could buy the doors, the windows, you could buy the siding, you could buy anything that's in the house, anything off from it. So I went there, and I bought all the doors. They asked me to come back in the evening. Do you mind coming in the evening? You don't mind evening, do you? No, I don't mind. Sure, I'll have an evening, sure. I brought a friend with me and came back. Now, when I got there the first time, I was there the first time, they opened up a door, and there was two kids in there. I don't know how old they were, but you know they were coloring and like doing like coloring books and stuff, you know, playing in this room. Okay, didn't really think much of it, but the lady kept them going in there. Well, we could see them. Okay, so we didn't think anything of it. So we came back and got the doors off. When we went to take off the last door, the male, the young boy, showed up. And he says, "What are you doing?" And I look at him, Joe looks at him, and he's like this close to us. And I said, "We're taking the doors off." "Why?" "Well, we're taking the doors off because your parents sold them to us." "Why?" "You seen," and then he goes, "You seen my parents?" "Where? I've been looking for my parents forever." Then the girl shows up. And then one of them was pushing around. Oh, the girl was on which one was it? One of them was on a tin scooter. And one of them was on a blue tricycle with chrome fenders with big wide bars. This is an antique, both of it is. And the boy had a t-shirt on, if I remember right, it had a Chicken Man high V. It was kind of an odd color of a tan shirt. Okay? So, my friend was getting a little uneasy about what was happening, so I don't feel right about this. We need to get out of here. Why don't we just leave this last door? I said, no, we're going to get the last door off. We got to get the stripped out screws. So the guy walks in that's related to that's married to the lady that's going to they're building a new house, or built the new house back on. Okay, so anyway, he walks in, he sees those two kids, and the guy just turns pale white, and his last step doesn't even hit the floor, and he just does a right back up. We get outside and we talk to him. "Did you see those kids?" I said, "Yeah, I seen your kids, yeah." "Joe?" He said, yeah, I've seen them." She says, "Those kids aren't alive." I said, "Well, they sure look awful alive to me." She says, "No, they've been dead for like 30 years. I said, "What?" So she told the story about how the family had died and the two kids came back. But the kids were fully aware of their surroundings. Listen to that. Fully aware of their surroundings. They can communicate back and forth. And they can remember, but there's no physical form. So now you're asking me, so were they really solid? You know, I really didn't take that much of a notice. I mean, I didn't like just stare at them, you know, but when I'm working at the door and they're over here and he was there, I mean, he looked pretty solid. But I mean, I suppose he wasn't so solid I could touch him, but I didn't really notice. I was more interested in taking the doors off. So they can appear and disappear. Now remember, they were on a tricycle and a tin scooter. So apparently they can appear with those too, unless those were already there, and I don't think they were. But when we seen them the first time, they were doing coloring books. So now I don't know if the coloring books were in reality or the coloring books were something the lady said, oh, get your coloring books out and color. This I don't know. But this really did happen. But my friend, he keeps saying, I'm never going to admit to it. I'm never going to admit to it. He says, because I just don't know what to think about that. But it was a well-kept secret. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. There's so many things experiences and things I could teach people about my knowledge over the years about the UFOs and stuff. There's another one that I learned over the years from my parents. Well, my dad and my grandparents. Did you ever go into the NASA exhibits around the 80s? Did you? Did you ever notice the art in front of the NASA exhibits? As you walk in the door, there was art. What was the art? The art was usually mirrors. Did you ever notice that? It was mirrors placed in different ways, so it created geometric patterns in the reflection, right? Well, maybe that wasn't just art. Because here's a little thing I've learned over the years. So, these things that come and visit, there's multiple races, okay? There's the, what my grandfather would call the security for the reptilians. They usually show up with red eyes, or they show up with bright eyes. They're black, shadowy. And they're like 39 inches tall, and they're almost dark gray. They got big old eyes, a big slit for a mouth, and some little appendages for a nose, and they don't speak no English. And they kind of make noises like a rooster, not a crowing, but, you know, like when a rooster or a chicken, you know. And the reptilians, the genie or whatever, they pop in and they pop out. They're so fast you can hardly capture them. But when you use the digital camera and the image swirls, that's them. So keep taking that picture even now. Okay? Now, these reptilians, and some of the ones that have this extra-dimensional in their technology, isn't perfect. That art that you're seeing in front of those exhibits, it looks like those mirrors with reflective geometric shapes, that's to see them. So they're standing here, and you can't see them. But those mirrors are on the back side, faced in a different way. That is to be able to see them from the back side. Those geometric shapes screw with it. Did you get that? That's really old knowledge. Just helped you out a little bit there, guys. I wonder if anybody else is going to say that now after I just said that. Now, there's an interesting thing. Sometimes people think they got ghosts, and they got mirrors in their bedrooms or somewhere, and something busts a mirror or knocks it over. It's because they were seen, and they didn't like it. Because, you know, if they're seen, then the gig's up. You know, they're hiding. They want to be able to do what they do and not be known. Okay, I think I've done enough now. Enough damage. Enough damage! Enough damage has been done. So, there you go. Good luck, people. You're going to need it.